welcome to the Deadly Duo Chronicles podcast. I'm Shan.
And I'm Heather.
And on today's murder menu is...
George Haigh, a.k.a. the acid bath killer. But first, some trigger warnings. Murder and violence.
Viewer discretion is advised. John George Haigh, born July 24th, 1909, to Robert Haigh, who was an engineer, and Emily Haigh in Stamford, Lincolnshire. He grew up in the village of Outwood, west of Yorkshire. His family was very conservative, but despite all that, he would go on to win awards, scholarships, and his academic career. John loved to play the piano. Despite all the good things he accomplished, it's said that John suffered from religious nightmares through his childhood, which he blamed the family for his upbringing, of course, always, for the reasoning to them. But that didn't seem to hold him back because he would go on to follow in his father's footsteps anyways. For just a short period of time, he would become an engineer, but before deciding that wasn't for him, of course.
July 6, 1934, John would marry Beatrice Betty Hammer.
It is what it is.
Which was only a brief marriage because Haigh would get arrested for fraud. Beatrice did not wait for John's release. She would go on to leave him and give their daughter up for adoption. And due to these events, Hay's family would go on to disown him.
Yeah, she didn't even wait for him. She was like, deuces, and I'm not keeping your baby.
Yeah.
Which is pretty messed up. But,
right.
Like, she was like, I'm not going to be one of them prison wives. See ya.
Yeah, but why take it out on the kid?
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't his.
Maybe it was a reminder of him.
Could be. We're females. We always have an excuse.
Touche.
So terrible. Shortly after his release in 1936, John moved to London, where he would begin working for William Donald McSwan as a chauffeur. However, that didn't please him because he didn't give up his fraud ways. Haigh would pretend to be a solicitor and go on selling stocks and shares for underpriced, which would turn out to be fraudulent, of course. And the only reason his scam would come to an end this time is because one of his potential victims saw that he misspelled Glideford wrong, which was where his fake office was. Haigh would go on to spend 4 years in prison this time for that crime. He got released at the beginning of World War, and then it wouldn't be the last of his crimes. He just got smarter. It would, he realized he needed to stop leaving witnesses.
Wouldn't that be some shit, though? Go through all that. Do all this crime and go to jail for a misspelled word.
I mean, I knew somebody who stole a 50-cent honey bun. So I can't say, but I mean, like, they spent 10 days in jail for 50 cents. So, like, bro, I can't say can't say them. They're criminals. We can't say they're smart ones.
September 6th. On September 6th, 1944, shortly after his last day in prison, Haigh ran into a former employee, Mr. McSwan. Mr. McSwan would go on to introduce John to his parents, whom McSwan worked for as a landlord, collecting rent money for his parents. Haigh would grow to become jealous of McSwan and his lifestyle. Haigh would go on to lure William to the basement on Gloucester Street,
Mm-hmm.
beating him in the head with a lead pipe, and then stuffing his body into a 40-gallon drum, which contained concentrated sulphuric acid, which Hayes would let William's body dissolve for 2 days and then poured him down a manhole.
Hmm. Well, I mean, at least he was feeding like the alligators and the rats and shit.
Yeah?
I mean, he could have used them as compost, but then he used sulfuric acid, so that probably wouldn't be a very good combination. Alrighty. On July 2nd, 1945, after getting rid of McSwan's body, Haigh would seem to form a relationship with William's parents, as if that can't get creepy enough. And then the war started to simmer down at this point. William's parents become concerned of his whereabouts, why he hadn't returned, why he hadn't reached out. So Haigh lured a little bit of southern accent coming out.
I was going to say our southern accents are definitely showing through this episode.
So Haigh lured the McSwans by telling them that by telling them their son was in London for a surprise visit, and Haigh would take them to William. John would surprise them by bludgeoning both of them, disposing of their bodies in drums of sulfuric acid, and then Haigh, of course, would go on to sell their properties, collect the money, and move to a hotel in Kingston. I mean, the only thing with that is, like, a couple things that I found is William left because the fear of being drafted is what the excuse was.
Oh, gotcha.
And then I read that he went to war, there wasn't really exact details to what story he used, but at this point it is what it is.
Yeah. In 1947, Haigh would rack up a pretty hefty gambling debt. After using up the money from McSwan's money, Haigh learned that murder was the only way he could fund his fraudulent lifestyle. After showing interest in buying property, Haigh would go on to form a relationship with Dr. Henderson and his wife, Rose Henderson. The Hendersons would go on to invite Haigh to play the piano at their housewarming party. While at the housewarming party, Haigh would steal a revolver from the doctor's collection, which he would go on to store away to use later.
Which, he had to be a smooth talker.
Oh, yeah. Very much. He's got these people,
Like, he may not have been good with his spelling, but, like, he had to be a pretty good, smooth talker. Because on February 12th of 1948, Haigh basically put a plan into motion, rented a workshop. Then he would lure the Hendersons to the workshop under the assumption he was looking at an invention of Haig's. Once there, he would shoot Mr. Henderson in the back of the head using the revolver, the same one that he stole. He would that he stole, and then he would lure Miss Henderson to the same workshop, claiming her husband had fallen ill, had fallen ill, and needed urgent help. Once there, she suffered the same fate as her husband, pops the back of the head, and then he puts their bodies in drums of sulfuric acid like the McSwans, and then he collected their possessions and forged their signatures, got their money, and on to the next. My thing is how do you like not get suspicious buying that much sulphuric acid? I mean, I don't know if it'd take a lot to dissolve a body because it's not like I think of that on a day-to-day basis. I mean, it's crossed my mind, but I mean, I mean, it just you think that you would get suspicious walking into like a store. Hey, I need some of that. Or where do you get it? Like, did you get it from a different component of something and then make it, or like?
I mean, I'm pretty sure he didn't go in and
Hey, I'm gonna murder somebody.
I'm sure he didn't walk into the store and get a crap ton of it all at once. He probably got like 5 gallons here, 5 gallons there, and kind of just racked it up a little bit. I mean, that would be my thought.
I'm pretty sure it only takes like 1 bag of lye so maybe it only takes like 1 bag of sulphuric acid or drum or whatever it comes in.
Yeah, probably because
I mean
it's very potent. So
yeah, technically.
February 18th, 1949, John would continue to target the vulnerable and elderly. His final victim would be Miss Olive Durand Deacon, the widow of John Durand Deacon. John used to be a wealthy salesman and fellow resident of the Onslow Court Hotel where Hayes lived as well. Olive went to Hayes' workshop under the assumption that Hayes would help her develop an invention. He has these people wrapped around his little finger.
He had to be a smooth talker.
Oh my goodness. That she had in mind. Once there, Hayes would shoot her from behind and dispose of her body in acid and then steal her possessions.
Yeah, so
see, like they have to think he's highly intelligent because he has these people believing he's doing inventions and helping with their inventions.
See, he got smart. Like, don't get me wrong. He got smart when he stopped leaving witnesses. But then he quickly got dumb when he kept them as souvenirs and drums. Like, he started out with a really good plan of dissolving and dumping them in manholes. And then, like, he went from that to just keeping them.
Yeah.
Like, it just... He just don't make no sense. And he come from he technically come from a really good background. Like, he wasn't abused. Yeah, his family were conservative and religious, but like
he had a lot of religious trauma.
I mean, religious trauma doesn't excuse the fact for you to just go on and kill because you don't want to get off your ass and work. Because that seemed to be his problem.
Well, a bad childhood doesn't give you that right either.
Well, no. At some point, you got to stop playing the victim and grow up. But the thing is, though, is he legit only killed these people because he didn't want to work.
Yeah.
He wanted their money, and that was it. He didn't want to go out and work a 9 to 5 or whatever. He didn't want to be an engineer. He just wanted to do whatever he wanted to do.
Which, that's the thing. If he would have took all the time that he had spent, like, orchestrating this whole ordeal,
yeah,
he could have actually done something and created an invention.
I mean, I guess if you can't be famous for your brains, just murder somebody and you'll get some sort of media. I mean, but it's true.
I was not expecting that.
But I mean, it's true though. If you can't get famous, booty shaking, or with brains, just murder somebody, and we'll talk about you for centuries.
That is such a weird outlook.
I mean,
And I love it.
I mean, technically it is, but I mean, he just.
There is so much to unpack with this guy.
There really is, because there's really no set in stone reason. I mean, he had trauma, yeah. Boo-hoo, everybody's got trauma. But he had trauma, but he come from a pretty good background. Like, he had scholarships, go with the piano. He could have been a professional pianist. We have to get that. I totally sound like I just said pianist.
A pianist?
Yeah, he could have been a professional piano player. But, no, he just don't make a whole lot of sense why he chose to be lazy and just take innocent people's lives just because they were living better than he was. That's what I don't get. But on February 20th, 1949, Olive's friend, Constance Lane, would go on to report her missing but to the police. Police discovered Hayes had a long rap sheet of fraudulent financial crimes, which then in return made him a suspect quickly. Surprisingly, being in this era of time, they were actually able to link him fairly quickly. Hayes was very sloppy. He left her lamb skin coat or fur coat or whatever at his workshop, along with papers related to the McSwans, Hendersons. The police then would go on to discover several pounds of dissolved human remains in the back of his workshop. And then Dr. Keith Simpson would use dental records to confirm the remains of Olive Duran Deacon. And then shortly after the positive ID, Hayes would be arrested. So her body must have not really had time to dissolve if the teeth were still there.
Right.
So she must have been reported fairly quickly.
During the trial, Hayes tried to argue insanity, which
they all do.
As the cause of why he committed his crimes, but his defense was rejected by not only the judge, but the jury as well.
With good reason, because clearly you're not insane if you can manipulate, smooth talk,
and orchestrate this whole ordeal.
And then find out the proper ratio of sulphuric acid to dissolve bodies. You can't be insane.
Right.
I mean, you're insane, but you're not insane.
Mentally insane, probably. But mentally incompetent?
No.
Not a chance.
No, he knew what he was doing. He just wanted to be lazy.
Even without the bodies of most of his victims, it only took the jury minutes to convict and find Hayes guilty of murder and sentence him to death on August 10th. Hayes was put to death by hanging.
Which, here's the thing with that. You can't, I feel like every criminal tries the insane defense at least once. Religion, no matter how mentally screwed in the head you are, you just can't use religion as a reason, and you can't use your family as a reason. Oh, my family, I didn't have an outside life, I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't get to be like the other kids growing up. You can't use that.
No.
He literally had a career path as being an engineer. Why didn't he stay on that? Because that would mean you'd have to get up every day, go work a 9 to 5, when he could literally just scope his victims, kill them, and then take them for everything they were worth. Because literally, nobody would miss him.
Yeah.
Or at least most of them. But it's pretty sick that he
I
murdered
wonder
a
why
family.
the other ones weren't reported missing, though.
Maybe they... See, there's a story with the McSwans, however you want to say it. They got suspicious, but after that, after they died, nobody reported them missing. So maybe they were the last of their generation or whatever.
Oh, the last of their family.
Like the elder. They're the elders of the family. So he preyed upon the elderly because at this point they had nothing left. I mean, other than money and no time. But he just, normally with these, they always have a pretty horrific background, but he didn't get abused, at least sexually or physically, maybe mentally mind abused, but even then, it threw me off because he doesn't look like the type that would kill, but usually it's the ones that don't look like the type that kill that are the killers. But his background made no sense, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know. This guy is just something.
Yeah, I don't.
He's just.
His crimes literally only add up to greed. He took innocent lives because he wanted the money.
Right.
And he didn't want to make an honest living. But that's going to be a wrap on today's episode. Once again, I'm Cheyenne.
And I'm Heather.
Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We are on Spotify, so if you want to give us a shout out over there, rate us, download, you can do so. You can do both YouTube and Spotify.
Yeah. Because the more you rate it, the more you rate us on Spotify, the more it will push our podcast out and you'll be more likely to see it.
Exactly. And plus, never miss an episode. That's a plus. New episode Sunday. Bye.